let's start with Brandon Aiyuk, and we could just recap everything that happened. In the course of 11 days, Brandon Aiyuk has made it known to ESPN's Ryan Clark, or I guess it was on the pivot when he did make it known, that he wants to stay in San Francisco, expects to be on one of three teams. Those teams are either the San Francisco 49ers, the Washington Commanders, or the Pittsburgh Steelers. Has held a meeting with the San Francisco 49ers. Then it was reported that that meeting went really well, that Brandon Aiyuk for sure wants to stay in San Francisco, but still no deal has gotten done. And he continues to express that he's not that happy and that, you know, if he wants to play somewhere else, he's there. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a couple of quarterbacks. You've been following along the entire time. I have from a distance. I have been caught up every day. I think my wife was a little annoyed at one point when I was sitting at dinner going, dude, Brandon Aiyuk, man, he's just causing all this drama. This is wild. What were your thoughts as everything was going down? I got plenty and very excited to share them with you, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, it's the story that keeps coming back. You can't go, you know, you mentioned you couldn't go 2 weeks without a McDonald's cheeseburger in Italy. Brandon Aiyuk can't go 2 days without making a headline about where he's going to play in 2024. It's something that, yes, as time has gone on, he's been a little bit more open about, oh, I want to go back to the 49ers. Brock Purdy's my guy. And why wouldn't you want to go back to the 49ers if you can get a deal done which pays you in a way that you're able to accept? Because you're going to go try to win a Super Bowl next year. Whereas you come to Pittsburgh, you go to Washington, there's plenty of questions. So I understand from his standpoint of, if I can get the money that I want, I'm going to go to San Francisco. But man, the amount of times that he just continues to make headlines, it's hard to keep up with. I'm surprised that you're able to keep up with it with how many updates there were over the past week and a half.
I tried my hardest to keep up with it. It is at some point it doesn't make sense to me where Brandon Aiyuk stands. And I know that doesn't concern the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it does at some point, because at some point they have to make a decision. Are we going to continue to pursue this? Are we going to go other options? It feels like the Steelers are in on Brandon Aiyuk if a trade could happen. If they could make something work, they want to make something work. When it comes to the compensation, me and you have had the conversations of maybe they shouldn't pay Brandon Aiyuk the amount of money that he's asking for, but it seems that they are willing to pay Brandon Aiyuk the amount of money that he's asking for. So at some point, I'm not a GM. I just follow the headlines, and the headlines are there. The stories are there. The reports are there that they're open to it. But Aiyuk's making it as confusing as humanly possible. And to be totally honest, I think it's going to end in a place where Aiyuk gets less money because he's making it so confusing for everybody else. At some point, you're going to push a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers away because they're just sitting around going, what are we doing here? Why are we waiting? Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? You're meeting and then you're not meeting. You're saying things, because this is where the crossroads are. You're saying things like the 49ers no longer want me and that they've expressed that. And then they're saying, we've had productive meetings. We think that a deal is going to get done. We feel very good about it. I was told yesterday from insiders and some sources that I have out in San Francisco, and, you know, take that with a grain of salt because I am not a San Francisco 49ers beat reporter, but I do know people around the industry in multiple fields that have some insight that I definitely trust, that the two sides are definitely much closer than they were a couple of weeks ago. So maybe a deal does get done soon. I think the Steelers at some point are going to pull out. I think at some point they're just going to look at it and go, nah, we don't want to deal with this anymore. We're going to move on. I don't know where they go from there. I do still expect a wide receiver trade to happen, and I know we continue to say that, but I expect it to happen. But I think at some point they're over the Brandon Aiyuk back and forth, and they've made their offers, and those offers aren't going to work. Omar Khan's a real straightforward type of guy. He's a real straightforward shooter. He's going to make his move. He's going to try to make the move. It didn't happen. All right, let's move on. You know, this is it. And if something opens up down the road, cool. But I think that would have to be on the other side of things. I think that would have to be the 49ers are calling the Pittsburgh Steelers because they don't want to trade Aiyuk to the Washington Commanders and keep him in the NFC. I think that that's where the Steelers stand. And I don't think it's going to work out where Aiyuk ends up in Pittsburgh, as optimistic as I once was. It definitely has legs. It's definitely truthful that the Steelers were in on Brandon Aiyuk, but I think at some point it's starting to come to an end. Do you follow the same timeline? You think at some point Omar Khan just says we're done?
Yeah, and it's also because if you believe everything that has been out there, the Steelers want to add a wide receiver. Are you really
Yes.
going to wait until the 11th hour to be left at the altar, or do you want to be able to move forward, get your receiver in, and be able to just focus on the group that you have? Get that player over to Pittsburgh, get him studying the Arthur Smith playbook, get him as up to speed as possible before everybody shows up in Latrobe. That's where I think it would have to end up being, because yeah, Brandon Aiyuk is extremely
Yes.
talented. And he raises the ceiling of the Pittsburgh Steelers sevenfold. But at the same time, if he's just going to drag this along to maybe get more money out of San Francisco, maybe leverage a little bit of a better position in the organization in San Francisco, then you're just at that end of the day there, you need to move on and you need to be able to get somebody that's going to help you this year. You need to be able to get it over with, and you need to be able to, move forward and get ready for the 2024 season.
Exactly. At some point, you can't be sitting around waiting for a guy that may never be available. That's just, you're chasing a ghost. It's not going to happen. And there aren't other options. And I think that's why the Steelers are still in the mix for a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. But I think other options are going to emerge. And it might not be tomorrow. It might not be next week. I think I agree with you when it should happen before training camp, but I don't know if it's going to. But at some point, another option will emerge, because that's what happens.